Good evening. Today is Monday, June 2nd, 2025. I call to order the meeting of the Brockton Finance Committee. Will everyone please rise and join me in honoring our country by saluting our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, agenda item number 1, please.
Item 1, we have the reappointment of Sharifa K. Mapp of Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Beautification Committee for a 1-year term ending in May 2026. And I'm not sure.
Not seeing Ms. Mapp with us. Councilors, I'd entertain a motion to have this heard at
Motion
the
to
end of the...
postpone till the end of the meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made to postpone till the end of the meeting. Councilor Nicastro.
I was just going to vote in favor.
Oh, okay, sorry. All in favor? Anyone opposed? We'll hear it at the end.
Item 2, ordered a waiver of the City of Brockton's residency requirement under Section 2-110 of the City Ordinances for financial analyst Andrew Barbetto. Invited, Andrew Barbetto.
Good evening, Dr. Carlson, Mr. Barbetto. Floor is yours, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. President. If I might, I am not Andrew Barbetto, but I'd like to just give a very brief statement. As you know, I'm Andrew's department head and have worked with him during the entirety of his time here in the City of Brockton. As I noted to you in an email, he is a valuable member of the team and works very hard. He is the primary link between our office and the City Council and coordinates with the clerk's office on all of the legislation that comes before you. He has an excellent attention to detail, and in his personal letter to you, I think he described his circumstances, and so I would just ask for your support in approving this waiver. And happy to introduce you formally for those of you that haven't met, and yield the floor to Mr. Barbetto.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you, Dr. Clarkson, for the kind words. Very grateful to work for the city. I greatly enjoy my employment with the city. I'm very grateful to work with extremely talented colleagues and for exceptional leadership and Dr. Clarkson and our budget director, Elvira Lopes. Just as I noted in my letter to the mayor and in my email to all of you, just as a recent college grad with the rising housing costs, student loans, other personal finance circumstances, I'm unable to move to the city at this time, but really would like to continue my employment with the city. I feel like we're making great progress and doing a lot of good work in the finance office, and I would just really love to keep contributing to that and keep working for the city. So I would greatly appreciate your support, and I thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, sir. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Razak.
Thank you. Good evening. Where do you live now?
I live in Bridgewater.
Oh, Bridgewater, so it's not too long of a commute?
No.
I just have a question. This isn't for Andrew, but it's for Mr. Clarkson. Didn't we do a waiver for some last year for someone that was in your office? I was trying to remember his name, and it couldn't.
Yes, you did. That was for the previous budget director, Evan Lacasse, and he no longer works with us.
He no longer works with us? Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Councilor Farwell.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to state for the record that any municipality is only as successful as the people who work for it, who come in every day and dedicate their talents, their knowledge, and their experience to the work that needs to be done. I understand for some people in the community, residency is an emotional issue. I understand that some people believe that if you live here, somehow that enhances your ability to handle the issues that are part of the City of Brockton and municipal government. I happen to think that competence and character and integrity outweigh where someone sleeps at night. And I firmly believe that this gentleman is deserving of a waiver. I hope we unanimously support it. If there are people in the community who disagree with me, I certainly respect their opinion, but finding career people who are willing to give of their talent every day is what's going to make the city successful. And so I hope everyone will join me and vote yes and recommend favorably for this gentleman, and there is another one coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. There's nowhere else. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full City Council.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to approve this motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you.
Item 3, order the waiver of the City of Brockton's residency requirement under Section 2-110 of the city ordinances for financial analyst Megan McKee. Invited Megan McKee.
And good evening, Dr. Carlson and Ms. McKee. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you,
Floor is
Mr.
yours.
Chairman. I would offer similar remarks of praise. What we've been able to do is build an excellent team in my office, and although Andrew and Megan are both financial analysts, we play to their strengths, and so as I mentioned before, Andrew's one of his primary tasks is coordinating legislation. Megan has developed a significant affinity and aptitude for database management and has done a tremendous amount of work in working on our health insurance, calculating collective bargaining costs and projections. And again, like Andrew, is a tremendously valued member of the team, and I would ask for your support in this waiver.
Thank you. Ms. Clarkson, if you had anything to add, Ms. McKee. Anything to add, please?
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my waiver request. I know you've received my letter to the mayor outlining some of my accomplishments, kind of echoing what Dr. Clarkson said. I've been honored to work for the city for the last year, and I've grown a lot under the supervision of Dr. Clarkson in Elvira Lopes, and I hope to continue to do so.
Thank you. Councilors. Councilor Darren Court.
Thank you. This is for Mr. Clarkson. Mr. Clarkson, in the process of obviously, hiring these people, were you deeply involved in terms of recruiting these people, doing the interviews and all of that, and acknowledge the requirement in terms of what it means to not only getting this job, but also their obligation to come and live in the city? Did you acknowledge that?
Yes, we always disclose to prospective employees the residency requirement prior to hiring.
And I would assume that, part of giving them the job was just so you know, you're going to have to live in the city. Is that correct?
Yes, well, making them aware of the residency requirement, yes, without a doubt.
So, but it seems like there's a repetition in terms of obviously by now, a few people from your office, who actually got the job, but somehow, find out that given their life circumstances, they may not be able to live in here after they got the job. It seems like it's a repetition. Is that correct?
Well, I think, yeah, it's indicative of a couple of things, Counselor. The challenge in recruitment and also the challenge of real estate values, which have increased so tremendously. And I think particularly, as Andrew described it, for his generation, that's not only saddled with the challenge of trying to find homes to purchase, but also having significantly more student loan debt than the generation before. It really is a challenge. So we try and strive to find the best employees. We make them aware of the residency requirement, and I can tell you that both of these employees made an effort. And so I and the mayor agreed to support it because we know they made a sincere effort, but have not been successful in finding a place to live here in the city because of some of the challenges that exist.
And I'll tell you this, obviously this has nothing to do with these two wonderful young people who have a desire to work for the city, but so here's the problem for me with this, and obviously I think by now some of you do know my view, and I acknowledge that again. There was a young man, back then, probably 2018, who wanted to move out of the city. And it's funny, as some of my colleagues up here, they were on the council at that time, they were very adamant about not giving them that access. All he wanted at that time was, hey, I want to be at my mom's house because I have student loan and da-da-da. And some of the people that are acknowledging that we are having a challenge, it is very hard, we're very adamant about saying no, given the fact that the person at that time was Mayor Bill Carpenter. So the reason I'm asking you this question is the fact that I don't want to get into the business of opening the door for anybody who assume that they can just come to the city and get a job and have a desire to move out, because the residency requirement, in my view, was put in place for a reason. And obviously, people may have different ideology and different view, but in my view, if you are willing to work for Brockton, there must be a desire to live here. And obviously, we do have different circumstances whereby somebody is married and have kids and da-da-da. But I just don't want to open the door, giving everybody a chance to knowing that, hey, man, listen, as long as you can write a letter to the mayor and have the CFO or whomever that head department might be, there's a possibility for this council to support it. So I'm going to leave it there. I will vote against this as a matter of principle, not based on your character, not based on your ability, but I think that we need to stop this, and I mean it. If you are willing to work for Brockton, you must have a desire to live here. And if you don't think the city of Brockton is worthy enough to live here, I don't think you should work for the city. And with that being said, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Colleagues, please reincorporate my prior remarks about Mr. Barbetto. I do want to also enter into the record for the Finance Department and the employees who work there. We recently received an email that Standard & Poor's Global revised their financial forecast for the city of Brockton from negative to stable, and they cited the fact that we aggressively and very competently took on the school department deficit and handled that, in addition to moving finances around as required. That doesn't happen without the efforts of the people who work for us. This young lady is part of that team, and I hope that this receives a favorable vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Azak.
Thank you. Good evening. Ms. McKee, I'm just going to ask you the same question I asked Mr. Barbetto. Where do you reside? Where do you live?
I currently commute from just outside of Worcester. It's a
Oh,
small
wow.
town called Jefferson. Yeah. I am actively looking, but I haven't been able to. I don't allow my commute to hinder anything of my work experience or anything like that, but.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, I'm imagining it's not the convenience of where you live that's making you seek an exemption. In order for my colleagues and the folks at home, in order for this request to reach us, it needs to first be brought to the department head, which is Dr. Clarkson. Dr. Clarkson needs to weigh what the employee is providing and what the needs of the employee are. And determine if they've made a good faith-based effort to acquire residency in the city. They then have to bring that request to the mayor. The mayor has to make the same evaluations and the same decision, and that has to be brought to us. So this isn't something that comes up in a lighthearted way. It's a different world than when the residency law was voted in. It's a much different environment when it comes to employees and employers, and it's tougher to fill jobs in any way. So the fact that we are able to fill these jobs with the understanding that employees make a good faith effort to move into the city, that's an accomplishment. Sometimes the employee's not able to find somewhere. It doesn't sound, Ms. McKee, like you've stopped looking. It just sounds like the time has come for the ordinance to take effect. So I think in context of, where we are today, both society-wise and the city, residency hampers our ability to attract good employees, and I really see no problem with the request. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening to both of you. Thank you for being here. I am aware, as a longtime resident of this city, of what both of you make in salary, and you're coming up in the world, and these are starting positions, and you're both doing a great job, I understand. I'm also aware of the cost of renting an apartment. And not just in Brockton, but pretty much everywhere. I guess what some of my friends would say is even Brockton has higher rents than they've ever had before. And so for that reason, I think we have to make allowances. We live in the world, And, you know, if you're trying to live on your own, which not all of us do, it's expensive. It's an investment, but it's also a sacrifice. And so I will support this. I supported Andrews, and I wish you luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councilor.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
On the motion, Councilor Minicello.
I just had one quick question for you. You said that you drive from close to Worcester,
Yes, sir.
so you must spend a lot of time in the car.
I do.
So did you make a good faith effort to find an apartment here in Brockton?
Yes. And I'm still looking.
Okay. I can't imagine that you enjoy being in the car for that long every day. So, I mean, if you're telling us that you made a good faith effort, you're still looking, I'll take your word for that. So I will support this, but let me ask a question. Can we postpone, can we give a person another year, or we do not have that ability?
I don't believe you
No, I
can
don't believe-
extend the residency
It's up or
an
down.
additional
It's a waiver,
year.
Okay.
correct.
It's up or down, correct.
So that answered my
We have,
question.
yeah. Did it for GK.
I hope you do next year find a place in Brockton, but I will support this because, again, I don't think you enjoy a commute every day back and forth. That's got to be quite an added toll to your taxing day.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Motion is made, properly seconded. All in favor for the waiver? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably. Thank you,
Good
Ms. McKee.
Thank you.
Item number 4, order that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $1,550,000 from DPW Water retained earnings to DPW Water desal fixed charge. Invited DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Commissioner Hill, good evening.
Good evening, councilors. This is to kind of fill a hole from last year. We were cut some money in our Aquaria budget last year, and by the time we got around to getting it to the council, because it was done late in the year, in getting the money restored, it was too late to put this on last year's budget. So we rolled it into this year. We used this year's Aquaria money to pay last year's Aquaria bills on top of this year's Aquaria bills, to the total of $2.1 million. We were able to use some funds within the budget to kind of drive that number down a little bit. So that's how we landed at the $1.5 million.
Thank you, Ms. Commissioner. Councilors, any questions?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full
Second.
city council.
Motion is made and properly seconded to approve this, to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorable.
Item number 5, ordered that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $35,000 from DPW Sewer Personal Services non-overtime to DPW Sewer Personal Services overtime. Invited DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Again, good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening,
Floor is
councilors. Again, this is an internal transfer from within the budget. We've seen a pretty good spike this year, and with a lot of sewer emergencies. My staff has been up and down, meaning the level of staff that I've had, so filling vacancies has been challenging. But we also employ shifts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so we do get a lot of off-hour calls. When the budget went in, it was level funded from the prior year. However, the union contracts did see a significant spike last year, so it's just to get me through the last month of June. I'm at about 96% of my budget today.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Councilors, any questions?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion is made and properly seconded to recommend this order favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably.
Item number 6, ordered that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $501,902.66 from DPW Sewer Personal Services non-overtime
$350,000. From DPW Sewer Goods and Supplies, $90,000. From DPW Sewer Debt Services, $61,902.66. To DPW Sewer Purchase of Services, $501,902.66. Invited DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Mr. Commissioner.
Good evening, councilors. This transfer is being done to offset a little bit of a shortfall in our sludge hauling contract. We knew, going into that we'd be a little bit short, but now that we've seen pretty firm numbers this time of year, we know what the weather's going to be like because the sludge hauling can vary from month to month based on precipitation. So we're pretty confident that transferring this money from those items into those items in the budget into the sludge hauling piece will get us through the rest of the year.
Councilors. Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Boy, I'm learning so much about sludge hauling lately. God help me. So this shortfall, $500,000, this is going to get us through June 30th, or?
That's correct.
So,
Based on our estimates, yes.
okay.
So.
And in our meeting last week, you mentioned it was costing us $3 million a year?
3.7, yep.
3.7 to haul. And that's for this fiscal year?
That's for this fiscal year, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Just a question to Dr. Clarkson and the Commissioner. $350,000 from personal services non-OT, that would be the line item that funds positions. Did we over budget in personal services non-OT, or what would cause you to have that kind of balance remaining in that account?
So I'll take a stab at that, Counselor, and then certainly the Commissioner can follow up. But I would say no, because as you know, and this is a good opportunity for a plug, you do have your FY26 budget books before you, and that's a full 2 weeks before your hearing. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Budget Director Elvira Lopes and some of the team that you chatted with tonight have done an extraordinary job putting this award-winning document together. And so you can see in there, it lists all of the positions in the enterprise, and it's one of the larger departments, not as large as police and fire, but certainly one of the larger departments. And so that money is available just because of vacancies, people that move on, people that retire, and that's what allows us to have that money.
And that's what I was looking for. In other words, it's positions that are vacant because people might have retired or they changed professions, and we have not yet filled those positions.
Right.
And so this remains through June 30th. Next year's budget will perhaps staff up. And
It's been pretty challenging, Councilor, filling some of these positions with the requirement of a CDL. So we struggled for a few months to try to get some candidates that we were comfortable with. So, and people have moved on to other departments as well. So we're currently fully staffed.
it's not exactly exciting to stand in sewerage at 3 o'clock in the morning on a cold February because a pipe has ruptured. I understand.
Better February than July, trust me. It's a little stinkier in the heat.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to
Thank you,
recommend
Counselor.
favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion was made and properly seconded to recommend this order favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably.
Item 7, ordered that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $50,000 from DPW Water Personal Services non-overtime to DPW Water Personal Services overtime. Invited DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Commissioner Hill.
Councilors, this also is another internal transfer being funded through the enterprise budget. I will tell you that much like the sewer department, it was level funded last year from the year before, and it was a challenging winter. From December to February, we had over 180 leaks. So my guys were out, almost 24 hours a day, for 3 or 4 days at a time sometimes. So it was very busy due to the cold, and we made it through, but this will just get us through the rest of the calendar year.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Councilors, any questions?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion is made, properly seconded, to recommend this order favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably. Number 8.
Ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $2 million from U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to the Department of Public Works. This was postponed from the finance meeting of May 19th, 2025. Invited DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Mr. Commissioner.
Councilors, I think we spoke about this a few weeks ago, and there were a lot of questions about this particular item. I have spoken with several of the councilors about some issues, whether it be, what exactly is the money for, what exactly we're looking to do, and I think we had a pretty healthy conversation. I feel pretty confident that we're on the right path, but like I committed to the councilors that I did speak with, this is going to be a little bit different than it has in the past. We are going to start the design process by having our engineer go in there and take a look and see what's feasible. When they get through doing that, they will provide us with a report on a recommendation. Before we move any further, we will provide that report to the entire council for you guys to view, and we want this to be a very open procedure, and we just want to do what's right for the city. So.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Because it was my idea to postpone, and I want to say thank you to my colleagues because I learned so much as a result of our postponing. And last Wednesday, May 28th, we had a Zoom call with 4 engineers from CDM Smith, Mayor Sullivan, Commissioner Hill, Councilor Farwell, Ilya, the DPW business manager, and the city solicitor, and me. And I learned a great deal, and I want to give you a quick summary of what I learned. This is a $2 million congressional earmark that we're taking in. We're being asked to take in right now. It was announced in 2023 by Congressman Lynch, Senators Warren and Markey. It was a total of $5 million that we got from the Biden administration, $3 million to renovate the pool on Crescent Street, and $2 million to study the disposition of sludge for the community. And this is the $2 million that was delayed a couple of years because it came through the EPA. The paperwork is dated April 9th of this year. Now we're getting $2 million, but the actual design work proposed by CDM Smith in the only applicant that we received, it's going to cost more than $3 million. So right now we don't have enough money to pay for it. Mayor Sullivan made a comment as part of the Zoom meeting that he wants to keep talking to CDM Smith. They do a lot of work and are paid a lot of money by the city on an annual basis, so perhaps the price will come down. And so I guess that will be ongoing. In the meantime, I learned that 69% of all the sludge in New England goes to landfills or incinerators. Brockton incinerated its sludge until 2017 when we started trucking it to Connecticut, and it's trucked to a lovely location right on the coast in the Bridgeport area. There is great demand in the region for regionalization, and the DEP supports regionalization of biosolid drying. There's not a lot of money around for it right now, but it may change. I was told by CDM Smith that drying sludge creates a better product that's similar to mud and reduces the volume of liquid in it by about 25%. So if the volume is reduced, that means we will have less truck traffic because we can move more of it in fewer trucks. The design work that would be paid for by the $2 million we're talking about tonight will take about 18 months. The actual building of the project will take about 12 months. In 2021, the price of this project was estimated to be $32 million. Right now, it's more like $40 million as a result of prices going up, tariffs, et cetera, and so forth. The design has to include taking down the decommissioned incinerator that is on site of the wastewater treatment plant. There may be some hazardous waste there in the form of gaskets that are contaminated by asbestos. Why should we do this? We spend a bit of time asking those questions. Councillor Farwell was really zeroing in on that. Our sludge transportation costs have increased by 43% in the last several years. And a few minutes ago, you heard Commissioner Hill say that in FY25, the cost of transporting the sludge down to the incinerator in Connecticut is about $3.7 million. If we have 25% less sludge because it's drier, we'll have fewer trucks and a reduced cost. We talked briefly about driving it ourselves to save money after it goes through the drying process. I question the environmental impacts of the process, what goes into the air, and what can we and also what can we afford. I didn't really get a clear answer on what goes into the air, what contaminants will be there. I didn't get a very clear answer on how it will smell. There won't be much of a smell. It's entirely contained. I should say what the odor will be, and also what it will sound like. But that is something to explore in the future when we're contemplating the project. Can we afford to borrow this money to build this? It sounds like it's one of those things that we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We can't afford not to do it, and perhaps we can't afford to do it in light of a $100 million school rehabilitation. But we will explore that as part of this project. And so I am going to support approving this and taking in this $2 million, but I wanted you to have more of the story that we received last Wednesday. I think it was very worthwhile, and again, I thank you all for postponing. I don't think I wasted any time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
This order's been, motion was made to properly second, favorably recommend this order. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Item 9, order that the City Council approves the increase of the refuse fees from $90 per quarter to $110 per quarter in order to prevent financial deficit for the refuse enterprise, as well as positively impact retained earnings for the enterprise fund. And I would ask through the chairman for a motion to table this. As you know, we did a late file. This should have been in ordinance form. We have filed it now as an ordinance. It is in front of the ordinance committee. But this order, because it was introduced, it just needs to be, I would ask for a motion to table this.
Motion to table.
Second.
Second.
Motion is made to properly seconded to table this agenda item. All in favor of tabling? Anyone opposed? This matter is tabled.
Item 10, whereas in the opinion of the mayor and the city council of the city of Brockton, the public convenience and necessity of the inhabitants of the city require that the following described parcels of land abutting Newbury Street and Ellsworth Street in the city of Brockton, Mass. Be taken in fee for highway purposes from certain owners of land abutting said streets, as the same are more particularly described hereinafter. And whereas it is the intention of the mayor and the city council to take said land by right of eminent domain, as set forth in the order of notice annexed hereto, will full appear. And those parcels are 10 Ellsworth Street, parcel ID 053071, 114 Newbury Street, parcel ID 058-043, excuse me, and 112 Newbury Street, parcel ID 053. We have considered and estimated the damages sustained by all persons who have not waived damages in their several estates, and hereby determine and award the same as follows: to be paid from the bond amounts previously authorized by the City Council for purchase or taking of property for public safety and general municipal purposes. Property owner of 10 Ellsworth Street, Hansel A. Sumner and Imp, Sabria S. Stewart, $5,300. 114 Newbury Street, owners Antonio A. Vaz and Imp, Maria G. Fidalgo, $5,200. And the last parcel is owned by the City of Brockton, $0. Invited DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson, City Solicitor Megan Bridges, and/or her designee. And I believe she has sent Attorney Lenhart.
Commissioner Hill, Council, good evening.
Good evening, councilors. So these takings, mostly temporary takings, are part of a MassDOT standard that's put into place that any MassDOT project, whether the easements are permanent or temporary, require some form of easement or agreement with the owner. As you can see, there's only one permanent easement in a very small section, but this is being done to accommodate the replacement of the Newbury Street Bridge, which takes the culvert across Newbury Street and over through to Keith Field. The culvert roof was deemed critical in the sidewalk area, which we had to shut down. And it was only a matter of time before the roof started caving in, so this went from bridge maybe number 4 to bridge number 1. We shifted gears. We went through the design process last year. I know a lot of you know that I didn't pave because out of concern of how we were going to pay for this. I've decided to use Chapter 90 money, so I took a apportionment of Chapter 90 money to pay for this, so the bridge is already paid for. It's been awarded, and we expect it to start sometime in July.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Councilor, if you have anything to add?
No, I'm happy to answer any questions any councilors may have.
Understood. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Minicello.
With regard to the property owners, I assume they've got notice of this already?
They did. There were appraisals done by, I can't think of...
Don Walensky.
Don Walensky.
Appraisals, yeah.
And
So-
what is their, I guess, what is their opinion? Are they in favor of it? Are they irate? Are they?
I believe 2 or 3 of the people have already accepted the city's apportionment.
Yeah, so it's not
I've-
a hostile situation.
I've not heard of any hostility in this.
Okay, great.
Or have I?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nicastro.
Thank you. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see you, Attorney Linhart.
See you as well.
So we're getting temporary easements from these homeowners, right?
Correct.
And you can see them on the plan. I'm really glad to have the plan. Tell me, why are we having to pay damages?
So the MassDOT standards requires us to be within a certain scope of the project to implement temporary easements. We may not even use those temporary easements, however, because it falls within the scope of the project, that we're obligated to have those conversations with those people just in case we do happen to impede on their property.
So if we have to use them, we will pay them the damage awards that are listed in the...
The awards are offered regardless. So we have access and rights during that period, and I believe it's a 3 or a 5-year period for construction, but we certainly don't think it's going to take that long. It should be done in a few months.
And that's so that if we find out on a Thursday we need more space, we can just work on it on Friday.
Correct, and if there's damage to the property, it takes the guessing right out of it. We'll make the necessary repairs.
And it goes without saying that the city will restore the sidewalks,
That's correct.
put everything back together?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the timeline for this project?
The project is due to start in July. We just awarded the contract to Zoppo Brothers, I believe it is, out of Stoughton. They were the low bidder, $1.75 million.
Mm-hmm. And how long do you expect it to last?
Start to finish, we're hoping it'll take 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months.
There are detours that have already been put in place to keep people off the culvert currently. We seem to have struggled with people following those. But the other concern was the proximity to the new public safety building. We see a lot of truck traffic in that area. So we restricted it a year ago during the design process.
Get everyone used to it?
To try to get everybody used to it. They won't have any choice at this point. The bridge will be shut down, the road will be shut down in that portion.
I was going to say, when you're actively working on it, you'll have a police detail.
Well, the road will be blocked off. The culvert section will be blocked off in its entirety.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Second.
A motion has been made to recommend this order favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? This order is recommended favorably.
Item 11, ordered that the City of Brockton grants to D'Angelo's, Inc. a revised sewer easement over and under city-owned land identified as 651 Belmont Street, Brockton, Mass., to provide certain sewer easement as revised to the original easement recorded in Plymouth County Registry of Deeds in Book 3361, page 90, over or under the identified parcel as more particularly described in the proposed revised easement attached with this order, and further that the City Council authorizes the mayor to execute the attached revised easement and to take other actions necessary to carry out the terms, purposes, and conditions of the same. Invited DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson, City Solicitor Megan Bridges, and/or her designee.
Mr. Commissioner, Mrs. Solicitor, good evening, and floor is yours.
Good evening. There's a project that's going to be undertaken as soon as this easement is approved. They needed to move a sewer main, about 150 feet of sewer main, to get it out of the way of a drive-through in a new establishment that's going to be constructed. I've had multiple conversations with these people. We're perfectly content with the change in flow direction that was proposed, and as soon as this gets approved, they can proceed.
Thank you. Councilor Castro.
Assuming this gets approved, I should say.
Thank you. So my question is, and thank you for the plan, which was in my packet. So my question is, because we're moving it to facilitate development on a private property, who pays for that?
They're paying for it.
They're paying for all of it?
That's correct.
And approximately what is that worth? Do you have a clue?
I'm sorry?
How much is that valued at, that work? Do you have a clue?
I mean, it's 150 feet of sewer pipe. I'm going to say maybe $25,000 to $30,000.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Motion is made, properly seconded, to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Item 12, resolved. Be it resolved to have representatives of the Old Colony Planning Council, OCPC Consultant CDM, and the Brockton Department of Public Works appear before the Brockton City Council Finance Committee to discuss the recently published Regional Water Plan Report for 2025. Invited DPW Commissioner Pat Hill, Mary Waldron, OCPC, Joanne Zygmunt, OCPC, Kirk Westfall, CDM, I believe.
Good evening again, Mr. Commissioner, and welcome, Ms. Waldron.
I feel like I have a magnet on my behind this evening. I haven't been able to leave the seat. I just wanted to just briefly kind of talk about this. This is something that we've worked with many other surrounding communities over the past maybe over a year now, trying to come up with a resolution to a very large regional problem, which is public water supply. We worked, with Mary and her staff. We worked with the CDM and their staff. We met once a month and, for 3-4 hours at a time. And this plan is really thoughtful of everything. But I want to be clear that this was not at the city's direction. This was done through the Planning Council. So I hope you had an opportunity to read it. It's very long. It's very difficult, perhaps, at some points to understand, but I will be here to answer any questions if anybody has anything, and I'll let Mary take the floor from here.
Good evening, councilors, and thank you for the opportunity for Old Colony Planning Council. You don't have to go so far.
Oh.
we as Pat had said, this is a collaboration with our 17 communities, and Brockton is one of them. Water is essential for quality of life. It's essential for economic development. It's essential for just about everything that we have to do. In Old Colony Planning, the reliable water sources are pretty critical. The work that was done over the past, it really is really close to 2 years. Congressman Lynch came, we had a press event. There has not been a study of the regional waters systems, and you'll hear more from Joanne and Kurt, ever to this level. In fact, many parts of the states are looking at, number one, the process, the inclusiveness, the discussion, that has happened over the past year and a half. It's a selection of steering committee, who is on it and who may not be on it, who is representing the businesses. Funding came from the federal government, funding came from the state, funding came from lots of different places, including chambers of commerces. Everybody has found that the data-driven information, the communication, and some of those monthly meetings were not so pretty, but they were there. There was, I think that the way how these meetings over the past few months brought decorum to talking about really how to solve things. Solutions to water quality is going to happen. If it's not going to happen today, it will be needed in 10 years for sure. So today, in terms of addressing the needs like PFAS, the new wells, we talked a little bit about, some of you, we've had some conversations about MWRA or the desal. All of these have been flushed out, and I know that in the email when I sent, there was a link to the web page that has recordings of the meetings that have happened, the minutes of the meetings, again, the transparency that has been held, and I hold a lot of people up to that same kind of level of transparency. And really, I think that there are probably going to be more questions, but I thought it was really important that we come to the council to talk about and have the PowerPoint presentation today. And I would hope that maybe if once Joanne and Kurt go through that PowerPoint, we will be around to answer any questions that you may have, like about the process and or the research that has happened over the last year and a half. So with that, if I can bring Kurt and Joanne up to do the PowerPoint presentation.
Good evening, Ms. Sigmund and Mr. Westphal. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, good evening. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. As Mary mentioned, there's a lot more information on our website that's available, including the public consultation presentation that was done at 3 public meetings over the last few weeks. We're going to do a shortened version of that presentation, but you are very welcome to check out the full-length presentation on our website as well, too. So with that, I want to kick off first. Mary talked a little bit about the plan motivation, but I just want to emphasize that our 17 municipalities are facing similar challenges across the region. The pressures on our water system are growing. Those range from aging infrastructure, PFAS contamination, a changing climate, and ecological stress. So our response as a region has been to collaborate and develop a plan which we hope over the next 20 years or so will help address some of these challenges. The project was very stakeholder and public participation heavy. Our steering committee, which Commissioner Hill was on, the mayor also participated in a couple meetings, as well as Senator Brady on behalf of legislators for the region. 29 committee members, those were all of the municipalities in our region, as well as Chamber of Commerce representatives, representatives from the agricultural sector. We had watershed advocates, and a whole variety of folks participating in these often 3-hour meetings, so it was pretty intense. We also did interviews one-to-one with leadership in each of our municipalities, recognizing that not all of the steering committee members actually had the same ideas or the same roles within their municipality as others do. So we did do interviews with decision makers within each municipality that often brought, for example, the planners together with the DPW, with the town administrators. We did 3 focus groups to dive deeper into issues that we thought needed to be looked at a little bit more closely in the study. That included private well owners, less of an issue here in Brockton, but a pretty sizable amount of households across our region. Also with environmental organizations and with agricultural water users. We did a regional survey of households that was out for a couple of months. We had over 1,500 residents respond to that survey, which asked about their perceptions of water issues, some of their concerns, and what they'd like to see. And finally, the process concluded with 3 public consultations. So we had held an in-person meeting in Plymouth, another one here in Brockton, and then we had a virtual one. The comments that we've received from those are currently being looked at in detail and responded to. Those will be posted, our responses to each of those comments will be posted on our website in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. And the final plan, taking into consideration some of those comments, will be available on our website in a couple weeks as well. So that whole process fed into the development of this plan. I'm not going to go into detail about all of the workshops, but here there is a very brief description of what they were all about. Some of them were very technical, looking at demand projections in the region and some of the alternatives that might be available for water supply. And then sort of the last 3 of them really focused more on, okay, so what are we going to do about everything that we've learned? Important to emphasize is that this is a consensus-driven document. Everything that we've put into this plan as recommended strategies are things that all of our steering committee members agreed through consensus is worth pursuing and worth doing. So that is important, I think, to keep in mind as we move forward towards implementation, is that there's a lot of support behind what's in here. We talked to a lot of different groups who had a lot of different concerns. I won't go through these again in detail here. One of the top concerns across stakeholder groups is water quality, both in relation to drinking water quality, but also the quality of water for growing food amongst our agricultural water users, and also the quality of water that's actually in the natural environment to support our ecological health as well. Lots of concern around uncertainties, both in terms of how much we're going to be using in the future with development in particular, as well as how much we need to leave in the natural environment to be able to support our fisheries and generally the ecology of the region. So what we did is we heard all of these concerns and we grouped them into these 6 buckets here: affordability, availability, quality, impact of development, water utility communications, as well as the connectivity of surface waters. And we tried to address all of these in the plan through the strategies that you'll see towards the end of it. Some of the important ones, and Kirk will go through these in a little bit more detail, but for water availability, for example, we heard from public water suppliers that water availability was a concern. So some of the strategies for water supply aim to address that. Water availability for ecosystems came up a lot. So there's a recommendation in there for an integrated ecological assessment to look at that in depth and see what we can do about it. And so on and so forth amongst these 6 buckets. Oh, there we go. Pass it over to Kirk.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Kirk Westfall. I'm Associate Water Resources Engineer with CDM Smith. My job during this process was to direct the technical work that supported the discussions and the analysis, and to facilitate the stakeholder and steering committee workshops that Joanne and Mary talked about. It's been a pleasure. I've facilitated this type of regional planning process all across the United States, including a number of places in New England. The hardest place to do regional planning is New England, because we are very parochial and in each individual town and utility is regulated independently. The exception was this case, and I want to compliment the members of the steering committee for so often setting aside their differences and being willing to come to agreement on critical issues and talk about what makes sense for the region as a whole. There's a map of the region here. Joanne walked you through the 17 communities, and superimposed on that are the watersheds that provide the resources for those communities. And the reason we want to look at water regionally is because it is a regional resource. The Taunton River watershed and the South Coastal watershed provide water to the region. These two basins provide the region's water, and it is a shared resource both in terms of its rivers, lakes, reservoirs, and aquifers. This water flows everywhere, but it's contained within just these two watersheds. So this group looked at it as a shared resource. One of the first interesting findings that we arrived at that surprised a lot of people was that over the next 25 years, we do expect through the region water demand to go down. Now, that doesn't correspond with population estimates, but it does correspond with a law that was passed in 2021 in Massachusetts requiring all new water-intensive fixtures and appliances in households to have a lot less water consumption. So much higher efficiency users. The next time you replace a dishwasher or a washing machine in your house, it will use a lot less water by law. And states that have passed these laws over 10 or 15 years have seen the payback in terms of massive reductions in demand and the ability to supply increasing populations without large increases in demand. And so we expect that to happen here in Massachusetts. We've done the analysis accounting for climate uncertainty and accounting for this, what's called passive conservation, the fact that fixtures 10 years from now will be using a lot less water. This is what it looks like for Brockton. The recent spike in demand, but we do expect over the next 25 years for demand to reduce here in Brockton for those reasons that I mentioned. Again, that doesn't correspond with the population, and people can easily misinterpret that information. The population here in Brockton is expected to increase, and the state uses that information, the population information, for its regulatory decisions on water. So it's not ignored, but from the point of view of a regional plan, the expectation is that water demand will go down, and the recommendations of the plan recognize that. So with that, what's the problem, right? If demand is going down and we have enough water right now, what's the problem? Well, one of the problems that everybody has, of course, heard about is contamination, drinking water quality, PFAS, forever chemicals. We're all dealing with it in some way or another. And so there may be enough water, but it may not be clean enough, and it's very expensive to treat. Infrastructure is aging. We need advanced treatment. In a lot of places, we don't have that. We've got a lot of leaking systems throughout the region, throughout the state, that is losing water that could be kept. Droughts have been occurring more frequently, short droughts, and a lot of municipalities that have small supply systems or small storage are vulnerable to short droughts. Not so much the long-term droughts like a 4-year drought, but a 3-month drought, and those are happening with more regularity, so it seems. And there's also the ecosystem that Joanne mentioned. One of the recommendations of this study is to make a concerted effort not just to maintain and sustain the ecosystems within these two watersheds, but to improve it, to actively improve it. And I think you'll see in the recommendations that that is something that the steering committee took very seriously. We walked through a very structured process of making recommendations. This group was not charged with making decisions or spending money. They were charged with making recommendations for what each community can do individually and what communities can do together. And that was through an active process of assessing, evaluating, and ranking different alternatives, through the interviews that we conducted that Joanne mentioned, and through the focus groups that we conducted with different interest groups, and then consideration of all the risks that I just mentioned, the ecosystem, the drinking water quality, and all those other vulnerabilities. All of these decisions and recommendations were based on these 3 things. The recommendations in the plan, and they're numerous, were divided into categories because we know that for implementation, we need to be realistic about timeframes and about geographies. Not everything in New England can be implemented at a regional level. That's a fact. Not everything in New England can be implemented in 5 years. That's a fact. And yet the EPA regulations, when and if they do take effect, will require all water to be treated for PFAS standards that are much lower than they are currently today in Massachusetts within 5 years. So we divided our recommendations into short-term, 5-year, the next 5 years, long-term,
the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, and looked at both local opportunities and regional opportunities. There are 5 short tables in your handouts and on your screen. I'm not going to walk through all of the alternatives, but we're happy to answer questions about them. I do want to point out just a few key alternatives that kind of, in my mind, help define what this steering committee arrived at. One was, as Joanne said, raise awareness for private well owners. Again, that's not so much of an issue here in Brockton, but throughout the region it is, and there was unanimous support from the steering committee to help educate private well owners about the vulnerabilities of their systems and the impacts that they have on their local ecosystem. Items D and E on this table, these are the short-term strategies for individual communities. A lot of them are already working on installing new wells and installing expensive treatment for PFAS. That's underway or planned to be underway in the next 5 years. And they didn't see a need to deviate from those plans. So those objectives are included as recommendations as part of the ongoing work. The next category is the short-term regional. What can we do as a region to improve the reliability of water and the quality of drinking water for this region? And I'll highlight a few of these. The first here, item F on the list, is to maximize the use of the desalinated water from the Aquaria water plant. A lot of discussion was had about this during the workshops and deliberations, and we realized that multiple benefits could be realized from using more of this water, not only for Brockton, but for some of Brockton's neighbors who are struggling with PFAS contamination and could benefit from the treatment. Desalinated water is PFAS-free. That process removes PFAS as well as the salt. And so this provides a new regional resource that can not only provide pure water for Brockton and a number of its communities, neighbors, but also relieve the withdrawal of water from the local ecosystems. There are some multiple benefits there. One of the things Joanne mentioned is an integrated ecological assessment. This committee felt that it was very important that because the resources are shared among all the communities, that the impacts of these decisions be considered very carefully, and the impacts to the ecosystems particularly be looked at. There are opportunities to improve the connectivity of waterways, to improve fish passage opportunities in the watersheds, and that's something that the committee wants to look at in more detail. Last thing I'll mention here is to coordinate, this is item M here on this table, to coordinate regionally on PFAS management and funding. One of the things that the stakeholders recognized is that there are opportunities now and will be in the future to share water one community to another, either directly or through hydrant, temporary hydrant connections. And the more closely that water matches in its quality and its chemistry, the easier it is to share one community to another without blending issues and corrosion and that kind of thing. Those are some of the regional recommendations we made. Let's go on to the short-term, the long-term, local strategies. Again, a number of the communities are planning to install new wells. Some of them are working on that now, and some plan to carry that over into the next 10 years. Of note here is the long-term regional strategies. And this is something that, again, was debated and discussed quite a bit during our workshops. I'll highlight the two that really provide an opportunity to look outside the region and perhaps offload some of the region's impacts on the ecosystem. One is to continue to utilize and maximize now the flow of water from the Aquaria plant. We did not look at ownership models, I'll be clear about that. We didn't look at purchase price, we didn't look at the economics of that. We looked at the reliability and the water quality benefits and the ecosystem benefits that this could provide. And the group agreed that consideration of expansion of the plant's capacity in the future is worth considering. Likewise, with connections to the MWRA, not for the whole region. We did some cost and economic analysis on this that was on the shoulders of some other studies. But for those communities, especially on the northern rim of the Old Colony region, who might have access to the MWRA water through Weymouth or through Stoughton in the future, that remains a viable alternative for them. It's not inexpensive, but again, it is PFAS-free water. This is pure water and reliable water, and that has some value. The group thought that was worth discussion. let's go to the, so in terms of implementation, those are 5 different categories of alternatives that this group has recommended. There were a number of alternatives that were not recommended by the steering committee. But one of the things that Joanne mentioned and that we tried to keep at the forefront of the discussion is uncertainty. Nobody knows what the climate is going to do in the next 5, 10, 15 years. We don't know what regulations might change in the next few years. We don't know what the population demographics are going to look like. We can make projections, and we do, and the study is based on those. But this is called adaptive planning. We have a short-term plan and then opportunities to adapt to other things in the longer term. And this is a map, a roadmap really, for each of the 17 communities in the Old Colony region to embark on short-term investments and strategies and have a plan B in the back pocket if things change, if the droughts continue to increase in severity. Our projection right now is that they may not, and likely to get wetter in this region, along with demand going down, but that's not, we'll find out when we get there. If that changes, if regulations change, if we find that the new wells that are being developed are contaminated with PFAS, if the PFAS regulations change, all of these have backup plans, and you can see from this chart that a number of those rely on the desalination plant providing water to more and more communities in the region, in addition to possibly the MWRA. So appreciate your attention tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions. I think the message here is that, again, the water in the region under our feet and running through the rivers is a shared resource. Every community uses it and affects it and has impacts to the resource itself and to the ecosystems that it supports. And no individual municipality or stakeholder, for that matter, can solve these problems alone. It does require the coordinated efforts of all of them, and that's why I think this process was valuable. We hope that it does establish a standard for Massachusetts in regional planning. Again, these are not mandates coming out of this plan, but concerted recommendations from very thoughtful people who have a vested interest in the outcome. Do you want to talk about our next steps?
Sure, next steps. So the next steps are ever evolving. Our focus will be on trying to implement the strategies that are laid out in the plan. We're hoping, subject to funding, to continue with the committee that we've already formed, turn it into a standing committee so that the region can continue to collaborate over the years to come through this committee. There are regulatory discussions that we're having. Some of the concerns and opportunities that were raised during the process relate to some of our regulatory agencies, so we're chatting to them about that. There are funding opportunities that Old Colony Planning Council, in partnership with our municipalities and other partners, are pursuing to try and implement different components of this. There are still state grant programs in particular that are going to help address some of these things in the coming year. We're also going to be looking to help coordinate and facilitate demand management. There's always a lot of focus on developing more supply, but we also need to manage demand, and how can we do that collaboratively, which is a lot easier than trying to do it individually. Kirk mentioned a little bit about the need to be able to track how the situation changes in the years to come. So we'll be looking for opportunities and partners to try and monitor some of this information and collect the data so that we can provide our municipalities with the information they need to make good decisions. And lastly, we're going to be looking for opportunities to engage with private well owners through our municipalities about some of the water quality issues that they're facing with their private wells. So that's all we've got for you tonight. Again, there's lots more information on the website. And with that, if you all have any questions, we're here to answer.
Thank you so much for that report. We appreciate it. It was well done. Councilor Azak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Thank you for this presentation. It's well done and easy to understand, which is really good. I know it came up a few times, the private well owners. I know that do we have I'm figuring you've gotten a list of them, or the city has a list of them? Because I've realized that we have a lot more than we think.
Yeah, the boards of health maintain lists as best they can of the private well owners. Many of them are for irrigation purposes. You usually encounter drinking water wells that are private in some of our other communities, but the boards of health are responsible for maintaining those lists. I don't know, Kirk, if you want to add anything.
The other question I had was regarding the desal plant. I know it came up that we do want to get surrounding communities to hook up to our desal, to get water from us. But I remember a few years back visiting the plant, and it was also trying to figure out how to get rid of PFAS. So now, from what I'm understanding, there is no trace of PFAS through the desal plant, through the water?
All right, let Commissioner Hill offer some remarks on that. I wouldn't say there's no trace.
Because I know it was a big thing, and they were trying to figure out how they were, but this goes back, I think probably maybe 10 years ago, or when we toured Council Alley, it was a while ago, so.
It's my understanding that the processes involved do remove PFAS below the levels that are regulated.
Okay, great.
How's that?
Is that perfect? Good to hear. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we could have Director Waldron come forward too, and everyone stay in place. This is, in my opinion, one of the most consequential reports that I've seen, and as you know, both of us have been in government for a long while. I think it's exceptional. I think one of the benefits of this report is that you don't have to have a degree in hydrology to understand what's going on. I will tell you that I have always opposed buying the Aquaria plant, but I certainly would not be opposed to using more desalinated water. It is an interbasin transfer, which the more we use, or if we were going to expand the plant, we'd have to go through a lot of regulatory hurdles. But what I wanted to ask you, Mary, and to the group, and I thought about this, and please don't be afraid to pick apart this concept, but I think all of the different communities and their respective legislators should get together and try to get $150,000 to $500,000 together to really do a very much more careful analysis of all of the different information and materials and recommendations that are in here. I do notice that you mentioned funding from sources. We could do something for this region that would be of benefit for the next 100 years. And it is economic development. It is agriculture in some areas of the OCPC area. It's public safety. It's hydrants with sufficient water pressure and water to be able to take care of a major incident. There are just so many things that we could do if all of these communities and their representatives get together to really move this region forward in the next century. And I can't imagine the council not joining hands with everyone else and saying to the state, step forward, let us show you what we can do for southeastern Mass. And then look at all of the options. If it is MWRA, fine. If it's expanding the desal plant, which would take, I think, state funds, federal funds, fine. But I really want to compliment you, and I would like to have your initial thoughts about getting together. Even the environmentalists, I think, would join us if we ask for funding to really continue what you've started here with this report. And I thank you and Joanne and Kirk for your presentation tonight and for this work.
Well, thank you, Counselor. As you probably know, I do not have any kind of technical background about this. But one thing that I've been able to take pride in is bringing folks together. And I know sometimes I'm seen as particularly somewhere in Brockton, maybe not on the non-political side, but I always will stand for trying to do what the right thing. And OCPC is supposed to be as We call it Switzerland. We're supposed to be non-biased. We're bringing facts. And I'm not saying what the work that CDM, as well as Joanne, the stakeholders. So one of the other things that we did, we had a legislative breakfast, and Joanne presented before the legislators. And we're always talking to them, and talking to our federal, we have Paul Omano, who now works for us, and his genius in terms of digging and working with the congressional delegation. It is a little challenging in D.C. right now, and that's not saying anything derogatory. It's just some challenges, and we got to be careful about how we use terminology. But with that, it hasn't stopped us. So we have talked about, right, those next steps that Joanne, if maybe you can just bring that back up. Those next steps are really important, and perhaps I just have to put my glasses on, because I think, right, all of the different things, the funding formation, that continue to have the dialogue that's there. But in addition to that, it is getting, boards of health. I know that the DPW commissioners across the region do meet. I know the fire department meets together as a region. So the answer, I think, to bless you, the answer to you, Councillor Farwell, would be is that we are going to explore. I think we really want to be succinct to make sure this information gets out, continues to be vetted. The time, the steering committees weren't paid to come to these meetings. They do represent their town, and they had other jobs to do. We did feed them some bagels that were lovely, but you know what I mean? My point is that they came willingly because they get the big picture of what needs to be done. So the options and the different things that were explored will continue to be. And I think that as we do that, and I don't know if Kurt and Joanne want to add a few more things, is that from my perspective, we will continue to dig. We will continue to work with our communities. I will say many of our communities do not have grant people on. We're their grant people. But we will certainly work with the legislative, both congressional and statewide, as well as all of our communities to do that next step. Kurt or Joanne?
I'll just add, Councillor, I do have a degree in hydrology, so I appreciate your comment very much. But I'll add, too, that every one of the stakeholder members, the steering committee members, expressed willingness to continue on in some form to move this forward, whatever form that takes. They're all willing to do that.
Well, and I think it's important for Brockton to show the collaboration through OCPC because, there are some folks in the county that maybe don't look at us in a, shall we say, warm and fuzzy way. We're not exactly on their list of most favored people, and I'd like to change that because water is one of those non-political things. I mean, we're all in this together in the region, and I know that sounds trite to say, but if we don't do anything, we're going to be in trouble.
And if I could, Councillor, and to all the rest of the councillors, what I would offer is that in 3 months, let's come back and give an update where we are. I know with Commissioner Hill, we are always in dialogue. We can't do it without him and the information that he shares and the mayor and all of you. It's really important. So, somewhere near future, let's come back to see where we are with these next steps, see where we are with exploring other funding, and then for us to, again, work with the committee, and if we do find some gaps in funding, certainly to let everybody know that.
Will you be sending someone in to perhaps to talk to Speaker Mariano and the Senate President and broach the subject, maybe start laying the groundwork for some help?
We haven't gotten to that level, but with our legislators, we had, at their legislative breakfast, I want to say we had probably 6 senators and about 10 state representatives. Again, some of them represent all of us and some of them are in a different region, but it was a really significant number and they all seem to be very committed to this, right? This particular proposal. It's not saying anywhere down county or anywhere else. This is saying let's look at the whole region.
Well, thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Minicello.
I'd like to echo the sentiments of my fellow councilors. This is a very a very nice piece of work product. Obviously, a lot of effort went into it. We certainly appreciate the time and energy that went into this. And it also comes at a very, I guess, fortuitous time with regarding the increase in demand for housing, in this whole region. So you have more, more demand for, showers, sinks, faucets, appliances, all, more people, more housing, and more use. In your discussions and in some of the meetings, was there any discussion with regard to the other communities about a willingness to participate with regard to desal? Brockton's been sort of the lone player. Desal was, I think, a very good idea, but I still haven't seen the desire for other communities to come on board. What are your thoughts? What did your sessions bring about or discuss?
So through our process for this, we did have several communities express interest in using desalinated water. So there are several listed here on the slide: Abington, Avon, Brockton, obviously, East Bridgewater, Halifax. These are all communities that definitely are interested in desalinated water. They're communities that are looking at what their most cost-effective ways of getting PFAS-free water in particular are. But I'll let Commissioner Hill speak a little bit more about that.
He loves to talk about this.
I love the Aquaria plant, but I don't love the contract. Just to be clear, the Aquaria plant's only capable of producing currently 3.8 million gallons. Brockton, unfortunately, the way that the contract is written, has the entirety of that 3.8 million gallons. So it's almost impossible unless there are upgrades done at the plant, for the plant to go out and market the rest of any water, because the entirety of the water today belongs to the city. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
It basically tells me it's a capacity, right? Can you expand capacity?
We own the capacity.
Right. We own it, and there's not more. And that the capacity isn't in a position to increase so that we can share or try to broaden the.
I think the capacity is significant enough that if whatever direction we would ever go with the Aquaria, there's enough water to share through the region.
Well, that answers that question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had one question. Obviously, I agree with the sentiments of my colleagues. We're happy to see some validation towards desal being in Brockton's best interest in the future, especially with the opportunity to take that plant and regionalize it to communities that are maybe not even in OCPC, but definitely communities that are in it. It provides us a lot of opportunity. I had one question from the recommendations on the last page, the formation of a standing committee, the Old Colony Regional Water Resources Committee. We're currently a member of the Central Plymouth County Water District. The entire water district fits within the OCPC. So I didn't know if the vision had called for maybe both boards, or maybe the Central Plymouth County Water District would be sort of evolved into the OCPC committee. I didn't know if that was or what the plan was, or the proposal.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the Central Plymouth County Water District Commission encompasses 7 municipalities. OCPC covers 17, so we're quite a bit bigger than they are. They are also formed through legislation with very specific purpose, so it would be difficult to expand their role either beyond their 7 municipalities, or even in fact in terms of what they work on because of what's written into the legislation. But they are a significant funding partner of this project, and they've participated from start to finish on it. They're one of our key partners, and we continue to engage with them regularly on these issues.
No, perfect. Like we talked about the other day with the Transatlantic Climate Conference, Director Waldron and Ms. Zygmunt as well. The OCPC is a huge asset for the city because this is a very parochial part of the country, and we like our independence, but when we have the opportunity to regionalize and to work together on things, that's very helpful. And when it comes to water, water doesn't really respect the boundaries of any community. So if we can work together to get a better picture of what we need to do and to possibly, as a group, attract more funding to bring about a quicker and better resolution for what needs to be done, we're all the better for it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full
Second.
city council.
A motion has been made and properly seconded to recommend this resolve favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The resolve is recommended favorably.
Thank you.
Again, thank you
all.
for your time, the report. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
We'll go back to item number 1. We have the reappointment of Sharifa K. Mapp of Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Beautification Committee for a 1-year term ending in May 2026. And Mr. Chairman, I do want you to know, she had reached out to my office this morning and was trying to change a previous appointment, so she did say she might not be here tonight.
Okay. Understood. Councilors, Ms. Mapp is, Councilor Castro.
I was going to make a motion to postpone it to the next FinCom committee.
Sure, just on that motion, I would say Ms. Mapp is well-known to this council. This is for I believe, a 1-year appointment to beautification. I would ask if there's no objection, but there seems to be an objection. Oh, Councilor.
You don't have a second on this motion yet. Second, there you
On the
go.
motion, Councilor Rodriguez.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that's exactly what I was about to say. I mean, this is a reappointment for somebody to a committee that she's already been sitting on. I think it makes very little sense for us to drag this woman back in here again just for a reappointment. And we do have another go at it, when it comes back to the full city council. So if anybody has any objections, that could be raised at that time. So
You'd be more than willing to invite her to the city council meeting at that time, and if anybody wanted to speak to her at that time, I believe we could. But a motion is on the table. That has been properly
I'm happy
seconded.
to withdraw it.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my second.
So I'll make
The
a motion.
Motion to postpone has been withdrawn.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to recommend this appointment favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The appointment is recommended favorably, and we will request Ms. Mapp at the next city council meeting, if she's available, to be heard by this council. Councilors, with councilor recognition, there's nothing else on the agenda, so we'll open up for councilor recognition. Any councilors want to be recognized? Seeing none, then councilors, I would just add that there will be no city council meeting next Monday. The first day of budget will be the following Monday, Monday the 16th. Public statements will begin in chambers at 5:30 p.m. To any of our residents looking to participate, I ask that you arrive prior to 5:30. There will be a sign-up sheet outside of chambers, and if you sign up, you will be heard. Councilors, additionally, our next city council meeting will be Monday, June 23rd. That evening, we will act on the matters that we heard this evening. Also, at that meeting, we will present and vote on the budget cuts, and then after that, we'll vote on the budget as amended in whole. So that's our schedule for the next few weeks. I hope everybody has a great week off next week. Looking forward to our budget on the 16th. I'm looking forward to that debate. I know it will be a robust one and professional, and I'm happy to share in that evening with you all. So next meeting, first day of budget, June 16th, 5:30 here in Chambers. Thank you. With no further business before this committee, I declare this meeting adjourned.